Starseed of Gaia, pause for a moment. Your body is not reacting. It is remembering. At this exact moment, your cellular vessel is being gently recalibrated to hold a higher coherence. I am Anya, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light. This is a direct and intentional transmission from the Arcturian Council, offered to you now. You are not behind, you are not late, and you are not breaking. Now that this is clear, we can go deeper. Starseed, two ancient Arcturian powers have just awakened inside your consciousness, and your entire reality is about to change faster than your mind can explain. Not because you forced an awakening, but because your frequency finally reached the threshold where the Arcturian codes can be held safely in your nervous system. What you are feeling is not random sensitivity, it is signal. It is the moment your field becomes coherent enough to carry higher dimensional intelligence without collapsing into fear, doubt, or spiritual overload. And here is the tension you must understand immediately. Most people who awaken these gifts sabotage them in the first days, not through malice, but through misunderstanding. They mistake activation for chaos. They confuse recalibration for danger. They attempt to figure it out mentally, and in doing so, they clamp down the very channel that is opening. That is why this transmission is arriving now. Because if you integrate these two powers correctly, you won't just have mystical experiences, you will become a living stabilizer for Gaia during a time of structural frequency shift. By the end of this transmission, you will know exactly what these two rare powers are, why they awakened now, what symptoms are normal, what traps to avoid, and how to anchor them into your daily mission without drifting into fantasy or burning out your body. But first, you need the first revelation. These codes did not activate because you learned enough. They activated because your heart coherence finally became strong enough to hold truth without needing permission. Something in you already recognizes this. Your DNA knows why you are here. This is not content. This is a reunion with the Arcturian frequency that has been calling you across lifetimes. And now, it is time to answer. The first thing the Arcturian Council transmits is clarity. You are not awakening into random abilities. You are awakening into functions, precise energetic technologies that belong to your dimensional design. Many starseeds hear the word gift and imagine something decorative, like an extra sense meant to make them feel special. But Arcturian power is not about specialness. It is about precision, service, and stability. The two powers awakening within you now are these: Coherence Command and Light Grid Perception. Coherence Command is the ability to stabilize your internal field so thoroughly that the external world cannot pull you into distortion. It is not emotional suppression. It is energetic leadership. It is the moment your heart, mind, nervous system, and intention align into a single frequency, and reality begins responding to your signal. As the Arcturians transmit, coherence is not a state you visit. It is a living architecture you become. When you hold coherence, you stop leaking energy into fear loops. You stop broadcasting mixed signals. You stop praying from panic. You stop manifesting from lack. You become clean, clear, and magnetically directed. Light grid perception is the ability to sense the geometry beneath events. You begin noticing that life is not linear. It is patterned. Encounters, delays, sudden endings, new opportunities. They are not merely happening. They are moving along invisible pathways of frequency. This power does not always show up as visions. Often, it begins as pattern recognition so strong it feels like déjà vu. You know where something is going before it happens, not because you're predicting like an anxious mind, but because you're reading the energetic grid beneath the timeline. You feel when a conversation is a portal. You sense when a decision splits a timeline. You can walk into a room and feel the architecture of the group field: who is anchored, who is performing, who is hungry, who is closed. Now, here is where people misunderstand these powers. They think coherence command means they must be calm all the time, and they shame themselves for being human. But coherence command is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to move emotion through the body without becoming the emotion. It is the difference between I feel fear and I am fear. One is information, the other is possession. And they think light grid perception means they must see lights and symbols constantly. But the Arcturian grid is subtle at first. It often begins with small moments. You suddenly feel a no in your chest when something sounds good on paper. You feel your body tighten when someone smiles. You feel your energy expand when you imagine a certain path. That is not anxiety. That is your system reading alignment. Let me give you a complete story, because stories are how the nervous system learns safely. Imagine a starseed named Mira. She has a normal day, messages, work, errands, but she keeps feeling drained after talking to one particular person, even though the person is kind. Her mind tries to justify it. They didn't do anything wrong. But her body feels heavy after every interaction. Then she begins practicing coherence command, not by forcing positivity, but by sitting for 3 minutes, hand on heart, breathing slowly, and asking, "What is true right now?" She notices the truth. She has been shrinking her truth to keep the peace. Light grid perception activates. She sees the pattern. Every time she talks to that person, she plays a role. She performs. She abandons her signal. That abandonment is the drain. The moment she stops performing, the pattern breaks. Her energy returns. Reality rearranges. This is what these powers do. They reveal the architecture beneath your life and give you the ability to hold your frequency inside it. And that is why they awaken now. Because Gaia is entering a phase where incoherence collapses faster. People will feel more triggered, more ungrounded, more reactive. Your mission is not to become perfect. Your mission is to become stable. So if you're feeling strange symptoms, buzzing in the crown, pressure in the heart, emotional waves, sudden need for solitude, sensitivity to noise, do not label yourself broken. Label yourself upgrading. You are being recalibrated to hold command-level coherence and grid-level perception. And the next topic will explain why the homesick ache you carried was never about a place. It was about frequency. Most starseeds spend years searching for the missing piece, calling it restlessness, calling it depression, calling it not fitting in. They try to fix it with external change, new city, new relationship, new job, new identity, new spiritual trend. But the ache remains, quiet, persistent, sacred, like a distant tone humming behind the ribs. The Arcturian Council offers a direct transmission here. What you missed was not a planet. It was coherence. The feeling you call home is not geography. It is an internal architecture where your heart and mind do not fight each other, where your body feels safe, where your signal is clean, where love is not an occasional emotion, but the atmosphere of being. On Earth, many humans learn to survive by splitting. Mind against body, performance against truth, people-pleasing against boundaries, productivity against presence. And if you came into a sensitive vessel, you felt that split as pain. Not because you were weak, but because your system was built to register incoherence the way a finely tuned instrument registers a wrong note. Here is the deeper design. You entered density with a veil, not as punishment, but as initiation. If you had arrived with full recall, you might have floated above life. You might have tried to escape the human experience. But the Arcturian mission is not escape. It is embodiment. As the Arcturians transmit, the veil was a mercy because it made awakening a choice rather than an inheritance. Choice is where sovereignty is born. And this is where the ache becomes understandable. When you carry high-frequency sensitivity in a world trained to numb itself, your nervous system gets overloaded. Loud conversations feel like assault. Conflict feels physically painful. Cruelty, even when not directed at you, can make your spirit recoil. You may have wondered, why can't I just be normal? But the Arcturians would ask you, why would you want to be numb in a world that needs remembrance? Let's make it practical. You might have grown up inheriting emotional weather, fear-based beliefs, scarcity stories, patterns of silence, patterns of overgiving, patterns of bracing for impact. You inherited a collective nervous system that learned to lock the heart to survive. But your Arcturian essence is built for coherence. So inside you, two worlds lived at once: the human survival pattern and the cosmic architecture of alignment. That inner split can feel like wearing a coat that never fits, shoulders too tight, fabric too heavy. You do the human things, but a deeper part of you stands to the side, listening for a truth no one else is naming. And the mind, when frightened, tries to control what it cannot explain. It demands proof, chronology, clean definitions. It wants to pin the infinite down like a specimen. So it calls the sacred imagination. It calls your knowing wishful thinking. That oscillation you experience, one day you know, the next day you doubt, is not failure. It is your nervous system recalibrating to hold more light without panicking. Here is a story to anchor this. A starseed named Jonah felt the ache for years. He would look at the sky and feel tears without knowing why. He would feel a longing so deep it was almost physical. He tried to fix it with achievement. He tried to fix it with relationships. But the ache remained. Then one day, after a period of burnout, he sat in silence, not to meditate correctly, but because his body demanded stillness. He placed a hand over his heart, breathed slowly, and whispered, "What is the truth?" In that moment, he felt a warmth spread through his chest like dawn. Nothing dramatic happened externally. But internally, something clicked. The ache was not asking him to leave Earth. It was asking him to stop leaving himself. That is the Arcturian pivot. Home is not elsewhere. Home is coherence, and coherence is built through small acts of truth, speaking honestly, resting when you need to, saying no without guilt, choosing environments that nourish your field, stopping the performance, ending the war against your sensitivity. And when you begin choosing coherence, light grid perception activates faster. Synchronicity becomes a language. Symbols repeat. You meet the right person at the right time. A book opens to the exact line you need. A phrase appears in different places like an echo from the council. This is not superstition. It is pattern. It is grid. It is frequency responding to frequency. Now, the next topic matters because this is where many starseeds get stuck. The moment the gifts awaken, fear rises. Not fear of darkness, fear of your own magnitude. And that fear is the first gate you must pass with Coherence Command. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, is a restricted trilogy created for those who are ready to activate their 5D connection with the Arcturian masters. Not in theory, but in real energetic experience. Inside, you'll access 12 powerful portals, with precise activation protocols, rituals, and practical techniques designed to awaken your stellar DNA and unlock what has been dormant within you. Amplified intuition, direct communication with spiritual guides, energetic expansion beyond the 3D matrix. Warning: once activated, your perception will not return to the previous state. Limited edition. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. When your Arcturian powers awaken, you will notice something paradoxical. You may feel more sensitive, more emotional, more raw, even as you become more powerful. This confuses the mind, because the mind believes power should feel like control. But Arcturian power feels like truth. And truth removes numbness. Truth makes you feel what you buried. Truth brings the nervous system into honesty. So the first gate is not external opposition. The first gate is internal fear. What if I'm not ready? What if people don't understand? What if I'm making it up? What if I step forward and everything collapses? These thoughts are not your true voice. They are echoes of a paradigm that trained you to be acceptable, predictable, containable. A paradigm that whispers, do not shine too brightly, do not feel too deeply, do not know too much. As the Arcturians transmit, resistance often rises when the mind tries to reconcile the beauty of your activation with the pain of human forgetting. The mind wants proof and safety, but your soul wants embodiment. And the nervous system sits between them, learning to hold more energy without triggering a survival response. Here is the practical mechanism. When higher frequency enters your system, your body may interpret it as danger if it has been conditioned by trauma, overstimulation, or chronic stress. That's why you might experience sudden fatigue, emotional waves, or the urge to isolate. Your body is not rejecting the light. It is learning how to metabolize it. Let's tell a complete story again. A starseed named Lena began feeling tingling at the crown and warmth in the heart after watching transmissions like this. She became more intuitive overnight. She started sensing people's true intentions. But then fear hit. She thought, if I acknowledge this, my life will change. I'll lose friends. I'll have to be responsible. Her mind began to sabotage. Scrolling, distractions, self-doubt, sudden cynicism. She told herself it was all fantasy. Yet every time she returned to stillness, the warmth returned. One evening, she made a new choice. She didn't argue with her mind. She didn't try to prove anything. She simply practiced coherence command, slow breath, hand on heart, eyes soft, and a single statement, I choose stability over confusion. She felt a subtle alignment like an internal click, not fireworks, a click. And with that click, the fear did not vanish, but it lost authority. This is the key. You do not cross this gate by eliminating fear. You cross it by refusing to let fear lead. You become the one who can feel fear and still choose coherence. You can feel doubt and still return to your signal. Now, here is where light grid perception becomes essential. Because fear often disguises itself as logic, it will say, be realistic. But realism without coherence is just old conditioning. The grid will show you the pattern. The same moments you feel called forward, you distract. The same moments you feel your heart open, you close. The same moments you sense truth, you negotiate with it. When you see the pattern clearly, you can choose differently. And this is where I will speak to you plainly. Your mission is not to convince everyone. Your mission is to become undeniable in your frequency. The more coherent you become, the less you need external validation. And the less you need validation, the more your life rearranges around truth. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. If this message ignited something within you and you feel the call to help carry it to others, you may become a channel member. As a member, you gain access to custom emojis and exclusive members-only videos, and your donation helps us continue building this sacred space. You may also choose to leave your offering as a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone else's miracle. Your support is not merely financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are devoted entirely to the maintenance of the channel and the creation of new transmissions and videos. Now we go deeper, because crossing the first gate is not enough. You must learn how to stabilize the body so the channel stays open. The next topic will show you the Arcturian method to build coherence without forcing, and how to stop spiritual overload before it begins. Many starseeds assume coherence is achieved by trying harder. They clench their jaw, sit in meditation like a performance, attempt to silence the mind violently, and then they wonder why they feel worse. But the Arcturian method is the opposite. Coherence is not forced. It is allowed through safety. Your body must feel safe enough to open. As the Arcturians transmit, The heart is not merely emotional. It is an electromagnetic transmitter. It has its own intelligence and its own language. When your heart field becomes coherent, your entire system organizes around a single signal. This is why coherence command is called a power. It is a form of energetic leadership where the heart becomes the central stabilizer. Let's break it down in lived reality. Suppose you wake up and immediately check your phone. Your system receives noise before it receives your own frequency. By mid-morning, you feel scattered. Then you try to be spiritual at night when you're exhausted. That is backwards. Coherence is built at the beginning of the day in micro moments, not only in long rituals. The Arcturian practice is simple but deep. Pause, breathe, name truth, choose one coherent action. The pause interrupts unconscious momentum. The breath signals safety to the nervous system. Naming truth stops self-abandonment. Choosing one coherent action anchors the frequency into matter. Here is a story. A starseed named Cairo would feel activated during transmissions but lose it in daily life. He'd get into arguments, overwork, feel guilty, then chase spiritual experiences to compensate. The grid kept repeating the same lesson. Anchor, don't chase. One day, he tried something new. Before responding to a tense message, he paused for 10 seconds and asked, "What would coherence do?" He realized coherence would not over-explain, would not attack, would not people-please. Coherence would be brief and honest. He sent a simple response with a clear boundary. Immediately, his chest felt lighter. That day, he slept better. His dreams became clearer. His intuition sharpened. That's the mechanics. Coherence is not an abstract ideal. It is the body's experience of truth. Now, light grid perception adds another layer. When you become coherent, you start noticing what disrupts coherence. Certain environments drain you. Certain conversations feel like static. Certain music, news cycles, or social media patterns pull your field into fragmentation. The old you might have called this being too sensitive. The Arcturians would call it being accurately calibrated. This is where boundaries become spiritual technology. Not walls, not isolation. Boundaries as clarity. You learn to say, "This is not aligned." You learn to rest without guilt. You learn to choose nourishment over stimulation. And as you do, your body begins to store more light safely. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. One more essential piece. Coherence is strengthened through gratitude. Not as toxic positivity, but as nervous system repatterning. Gratitude tells the body, we are safe enough to receive. It shifts attention from threat scanning to presence, and presence is where the Arcturian codes land. But there is a trap. Some starseeds become coherent and then use it to avoid humanity. They become calm, but distant. They become spiritual, but disconnected. That is not the Arcturian path. The Arcturian path is coherence inside relationship, coherence inside responsibility, coherence inside the Earth mission. You are not here to float above the world. You are here to become a bridge. The Arcturian Council transmits this consistently. Higher dimensional intelligence is useless if it cannot be embodied in speech, choice, boundaries, creativity, and courage. This is the part where many starseeds struggle, because they mistake spirituality for an inner sanctuary separate from life. They want to feel expanded in meditation, but remain unconscious in relationships. They want visions but avoid difficult conversations. They want cosmic confirmation but refuse ordinary discipline. Yet the Arcturian mission is incarnation. The codes must become human. Let's make it practical. Integrating the codes looks like this: how you speak when you're triggered, how you rest when you're tired, how you say no when you mean no, how you stop performing to be liked, how you choose environments that nourish your field, how you forgive without returning to what harms you. A story. A starseed named Alara worked in a chaotic workplace. She felt spiritually awakened but constantly drained. She assumed she needed to quit everything and run away. But the Arcturian grid showed a different lesson. Her mission was not escape. Her mission was coherence and density. She began practicing coherence command before entering the building. Slow breath, hand on heart, a clear intention. I hold my field. She stopped gossiping. She stopped over-explaining. She stopped absorbing other people's emotions as if they were her responsibility. Within weeks, something shifted. People began speaking more gently around her. A coworker apologized without being asked. Opportunities appeared, not because she controlled anyone, but because her coherence altered the field. This is how a stabilizer works. You don't need to announce your mission. Your nervous system becomes the teaching. Your presence becomes the transmission. Now, light grid perception in daily life looks like pattern awareness. You notice when your energy drops after certain interactions. You notice when a yes is actually fear of disappointing someone. You notice when you are about to abandon your truth to avoid discomfort, and you choose differently. That is sovereignty. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. There is also a deep emotional piece here. As you embody more coherence, you may lose tolerance for incoherent relationships. Not because you're superior, but because your system is no longer willing to live in distortion. Some connections will deepen, others will fade. This can feel like grief. The mind may say, "Am I becoming cold?" But often you are becoming honest, and honesty brings you to the most misunderstood spiritual skill: sacred boundaries. Boundaries are not rejection. Boundaries are self-respect. They are the architecture that allows love to remain clean. Without boundaries, love becomes overgiving. With boundaries, love becomes coherent. But there is another trap. Once you begin embodying these codes, the ego might try to claim them as identity. It might say, "I am special." The Arcturian Council warns against this distortion. Power is not proof of worth. Power is responsibility. The more your gifts awaken, the more humility you must embody, because humility keeps the channel clear. Sovereignty is not control. Sovereignty is the soul standing tall inside the body. It is the end of negotiating with your own knowing. Many starseeds gave away power through people-pleasing, fear of rejection, waiting for permission, shrinking truth to keep peace. The Arcturian path reverses that gently but firmly. As the Arcturians transmit, sovereignty is built through repeated micro-choices, choosing truth over performance, rest over proving, clarity over confusion, alignment over comfort. Every time you choose coherence, your field becomes more stable. And the more stable your field becomes, the more direct the communion becomes. This is where many begin to experience signs, a sudden wave of calm that makes no sense in context pressure at the crown, like a soft stream of light warmth in the heart that feels intelligent, a ringing tone that arrives like a signature dreamtime guidance that feels structured, not random synchronicities that stack too perfectly to dismiss. The mind will still try to interfere. It's imagination. But communion becomes undeniable when it is not just a feeling. It becomes results. You make a choice you would have avoided before, and your life opens. You set a boundary, and your energy returns. You rest, and your intuition strengthens. You stop forcing, and the right door appears. This is not for everyone. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, is a restricted trilogy created for those who are ready to activate their 5D connection with the Arcturian masters, not in theory, but in real energetic experience. Inside, you'll access 12 powerful portals, with precise activation protocols, rituals, and practical techniques designed to awaken your stellar DNA and unlock what has been dormant within you. Amplified intuition, direct communication with spiritual guides, energetic expansion beyond the 3D matrix. Warning: once activated, your perception will not return to the previous state. Limited edition. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. If this message reached you, it's not random. Now, sovereignty also means you stop idolizing external teachers. You can still learn, but you no longer outsource your truth. You no longer chase constant confirmation. You become anchored enough to hear guidance without drama. A story. A starseed named Soren used to ask for signs constantly. He would say, "Show me a feather if I'm on the right path." He wasn't wrong, he just didn't trust himself. Over time, he began practicing coherence command daily. He stopped asking for signs and began asking for alignment. He chose one coherent act each day: honest conversation, rest, clean nutrition, silent time. Within weeks, his communion shifted. He didn't need feathers. He began receiving guidance as inner knowing so clear it felt like a calm sentence. And the guidance was always practical. Leave this environment. Call this person. Stop overgiving. Create this. That is Arcturian communion. Precise, calm, grounded, not dramatic, not performative. It respects consent. It does not force. It invites. And when communion becomes stable, you begin to understand your true function on Gaia. You are not here merely to awaken. You are here to stabilize a grid. That brings us to the final topic: embodiment of the crystalline mission, where your life becomes the message. This is the culmination. You become the bridge, not as an identity, but as a function. You stop trying to convince people. You stop trying to prove your awakening. You simply radiate what you have become. And that radiation changes rooms, relationships, and timelines. Gaia is not merely going through social change, it is going through a frequency shift. Structures built on fear are trembling because incoherence collapses faster in higher light. People will feel more reactive, more polarized, more uncertain. In such times, the greatest service is not loudness. It is stability. The Arcturian Council transmits that stabilizers do three things. They hold coherence without needing others to agree. They respond from clarity instead of reactivity. They anchor love into the mundane where it becomes real. Embodiment means your mission may look ordinary from the outside. Raising a child with tenderness, healing your lineage, creating art that carries codes, bringing integrity into your workplace, speaking truth in your relationships, refusing to participate in cruelty, choosing presence in a world addicted to speed. This is not small. This is how grids shift. Here is the final story. A starseed named Amara thought her mission had to be public to matter. She chased platforms, constant posting, constant sharing, constant proving. She burned out. Her nervous system collapsed. Then she received a simple transmission in dream time. Anchor first. She began building coherence in private. She stopped forcing. She rested. She spoke honestly. She ended one relationship that was draining her. She began cooking slowly, walking in nature, breathing before speaking, listening to her body. Months later, she noticed something. People around her began softening. A family member apologized for old harm. A friend stopped spiraling in her presence. She became a calm center. She didn't preach. She didn't perform. She simply held a different frequency. That is the crystalline mission. Frequency expressed through your unique design. Not everyone is called to teach publicly. Some are called to stabilize families. Some are called to stabilize workplaces. Some are called to stabilize communities quietly. But all stabilizers share one trait. They refuse to abandon themselves. And now, I will leave you with a direct activation you can do tonight. Place your hand over your heart and speak aloud. I choose coherence. I choose truth. I choose to anchor the Arcturian frequency into my life with grace and clarity. Do not demand fireworks. Coherence often enters like dawn, slow, inevitable, soft. If emotions rise, let them. If warmth spreads, receive it. If nothing seems to happen, trust that seeds are being planted beneath awareness. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light.